Okay, so welcome back to the Fevolution Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Marie, and we are on season 2 of the Fevolution Podcast. Now, I told you last episode that season 2 is going to be different, right? Because I realized it needed to be. And we're going to be talking about things that happened over each 2-week period that kind of goes with protection first and FemFlow. And if you remember from last episode, we were talking about my daughter being in the hospital and what I had to do to get through that and how I found the one thing in that situation that was actually within my control and made that my safe space, so to speak. So that way I could have a sense of control in a situation where I otherwise had no control. So let's talk about what's happened this past 2 weeks. I know in season 1, I think it was what, FemFlow Under Pressure or something like that. I talked about how things had stacked. Um, this past 2 weeks was no different. Okay. So financially wise, I did need to again leverage some options that I had to make sure that my bills got paid without being at risk of anything being disconnected or anything like that. So I handled that situation, been through it before. Easy peasy, right? But I also learned that Sunday, August 23rd, and I didn't know this in the morning, okay, was actually my personal new year. And that day started off crazy. Nothing was going to plan. I was doing my best to pivot, right? And try to get things back on track. And I got met with a lot of resistance, and there was a personal situation involved in that, right? Where I had to remember all of the work that I have done over this past year and a half to heal myself, build a strong relationship with myself, stronger than it's ever been before, right? Learn how to trust myself again and love myself. And it was a whole thing, y'all. Okay. Bottom line, it took a lot to get to that point. And I realized how sacred my peace was because I grew up weird. Okay. I grew up absolutely weird. And I say that because number one, right? My family, my mom's side of it. I never really knew my dad's side, aside from my dad and my siblings and, my stepmom at the time, but never met any aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, nothing, right? When it comes to my dad's side of the family. Now, my mom's side of the family is huge. They're also very Catholic. So growing up, I remember when I was younger taking communion and things like that, but then at some point, it kind of switched and it became me going to a Baptist church and learning about Christianity instead of, being Catholic. Like it was weird to say the least, right? So I was very confused on which way was the right way. And I didn't know because, one religion teaches you certain values and things like that. The other one teaches them a different way, right? And those values don't always align. Sometimes it's like they were fighting each other. And I cannot understand how God could be in both of those religions when they were, in my experience at the time, right? So radically different. I couldn't understand it. And what happened was as I got older and I grew and, grew in my relationship with God and my relationship with myself, I realized that there's probably no single religion that I feel I belong to 100%. The only thing I can tell you is that I do believe that God exists, right? So I do believe in the power of God. I do believe in the omnipresence of Him. I also believe in Mother Nature and the universe, right? And something dawned on me this morning when I got out of the shower. And I was like, I think I figured it out because I was looking for one of my necklaces, which I couldn't find the one I wanted. So I don't have one on today. But I was looking for the necklace, and all my tarot card decks were in that drawer because I had been rearranging this weekend and doing a lot of different things. And I felt this pull, right? To grab my tarot cards. And I have so many decks, right? There were some of them that were kind of loose and in their piles, but in looking for the necklace, some of the cards started sort of jumping out at me, right? Like, hey, pick me, pick me, pick me. Okay, cool. Then a couple of decks, same thing. Okay, cool. Got you, right? And here's where my realization actually made way more sense. Things like tarot are considered tools, right? Tools to interact with the energy around you. And I realized that energy is what connects everything, right? We have energy, money has energy, cards like tarot cards and things like that have energy. The Bible has energy. God is an energy. The universe is an energy. And so is Mother Earth, right? So God is like this spiritual energy that surrounds all of us. Mother Earth is the physical part of that energy, right? It's what's in our physical world. And the universe is a different type of energy, right? It's an expansive one. Similar to God but not the same, right? Two sides of the same coin though. Humans have energy, right? And I'm over here like, that's what makes everything make sense. Everything is energy. It's a different expression of it, right? So while there are certain things that I wholeheartedly reject when it comes to the Catholic religion, same with Christianity and things like that, that is not me rejecting God, right? That is me rejecting the interpretations of God's word that they teach when it comes to certain things. And that's where values come from, right? Because there is a certain interpretation of God's word that says that same-sex relationships are a sin, right? I think we've all kind of heard that God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, blah, 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 right? We're surrounded by things like that. But God is love, right? God is love and he's light and he accepts everyone exactly as they are. He created everyone to be individuals. And if you want to get technical, and y'all about to not like what I'm about to say, I'm going to put it this way. If Adam and Eve were the first man and woman, right? We are all descendants of them. So aren't we all related anyway? Isn't that love, unconditional love? Because that's what family is about, right? It's about unconditional love. It's about accepting each other as they are, right? It's about loving one another, being kind to one another, and working together so that everyone has a better life, right? So anyone who preaches hate or tries to marginalize any particular group of people, I cannot relate to you. I can't. I cannot, right? And I know I have to protect my peace. So when I get into or when I come across a situation like that, I withdraw my energy and I shut it out, right? I'm like, nope, I am not interacting with that. That does not align with who I am. You can have your beliefs, right? You're entitled to them just like everyone's entitled to an opinion. But I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with it. If you're preaching hate, I don't want to hear you. I don't care to hear you. Preach it to someone who has those same beliefs. There's a billion, probably more than that, people in this world. There's like billions of people, right? And we have a lot in common, but we also are unique because we were created that way. So while some people may see tarot as the devil's work, right? For lack of a better way to explain it, right? Tarot's supposed to be taboo, it's supposed to be bad. But it's energy. It's a way to connect with yourself. It's a way to connect with God. It's a way to connect with the universe. It's a way to connect with the earth. That's how I look at it. We're all energy. The universe is energy. God's energy. Tarot is a tool in which you can get answers, right? Because we pray, well, most people, right? If you believe in the power of prayer, you pray. I'm not gonna say everybody, because I know, like I said, everyone has their own beliefs. But I will say that I found a certain harmony in it all, right? And again, it's the energy. And if something doesn't align with your energy, it doesn't feel good to you, you don't have to accept it. There may be a lot of people that don't understand why I'm even talking about this. And if I'm being honest right now, I don't even know. I just know that I felt pulled to have this conversation about energy and how energy affects us, right? Other people's mood. When you can feel someone's mood, right? That's energy that they're projecting towards you. Like you can tell if someone's upset with you, even if they don't say anything, because of their energy. You'll sense it, right? You can sense when someone is being open with you, when they are trying to be there for you, or, when you're aligned, we'll put it like that, right? You can also tell when you're misaligned with someone, when they're not the one for you. You don't like their energy, you don't like their vibe, if that's what you want to call it, right? And so you avoid that person. But one thing I will say is, because we are all energy, right? And I'm a human being and I'm energy. I understand that how I feel can also be felt through my energy. So if I want someone to know that I love them and I care about them, and I'm willing to be there for them, I don't just show that with my actions, right? I allow them to feel that with my energy. So they can feel when I'm open and I'm there and I'm available. They can also feel when I'm retreating and I'm shutting down because now I'm closed off, right? And I can feel it too. And it took a long time for me to get to this point. It took a lot of healing. It took a lot of efforts and hard work and learning to love myself no matter what, right? I've went through a lot of changes this year, a lot, even physically. And I had to get a procedure, right? And we kind of talked about that a little bit last episode, where all of my top teeth were taken out. And I didn't really have any control over that, right? There were a lot of factors that went into that, but I got that denture, which I told you I'm not wearing until I get the permanent one. I decided I would try, but not when I need to speak, because then I'm not going to be able to speak clearly. And I think speaking clearly is important, right? I'm on a podcast. You guys need to be able to understand me. So that being said, Sunday being my personal new year, right? That was brought to my attention later in the day. The morning started off insane. I ended up being very hurt from a situation, and it reminded me of all the work that I had done to repair my relationship with myself, and why it's necessary to protect me and protect my peace and make sure that I'm not allowing any energy to sit within me that puts me in a bad place, okay? And as a result, I started journaling again for the first time, and I created a personal year calendar. So August 23, 2026 through August 22, 2027 is now my personal new year, right? That's my year. So I know I'll still celebrate traditional Christmas, New Year's, things like that. This is just something separate and personal just for me. And I embraced, like, okay, what do I want my personal year to be about? Because what happened to me today, right? And this is Sunday when I was going through this. I don't want to feel like that again. And I know there's going to be times where you can't help how something affects you, right? It's not that I'm not human and I don't have feelings and things cannot negatively impact me. But I do feel things so deeply that once it gets to a certain point, right, it can damage my relationship with myself. And it took me a long time to build that up after it was completely tore apart. Um, in my younger adult years, right? And late teenage years. Um, and so for the first time in my life, I feel completely whole and at peace with myself, right? And it's been like that for a while now. But this situation Sunday kind of reminded me, like, hey, you've been here before. You know where it leads. You can choose differently this time, right? You don't have to deplete yourself to prove how you feel or how much you care, right? Because what happens is personal experience, right? When you deplete yourself, then there's nothing left for you. So what is there to protect if you're empty, if you're broken, if you're at your lowest, right? And when you get to that point, the one thing I will say, even though it sounds super cliche, is that when you are at your lowest point, there is nowhere for you to go but up because you can't get any lower. You're already at rock bottom. Oh, hold on. Oh, you're gonna have to grab it. I can't. Sorry. Cherish per usual. Per usual. But there's nowhere to go but up. Like you're already rock bottom. You're already as low as you can go. And basically you get to start again. You get to build from the ground up again. You take those lessons with you. You apply them in the way that works for you. And then you build yourself back up and learn to trust yourself again. Learn to listen to yourself. Learn to love yourself. Learn that it is okay to be alone sometimes. Sometimes we need to be alone in order to have a relationship with ourselves. And that doesn't mean we don't love anybody else and we're selfish and we only love ourselves. It means that to really love someone else, you need to love yourself first. Because if you don't know how to love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? You're not. You're going to hurt them. Because remember, hurt people, right? And I know y'all are probably like, what the hell does this have to do with protection first and femflow and things like that? But that just means you're not listening. We're all energy, right? We all know what it feels like to be at peace. At least I hope we do. Even if there's not a time you can remember in your adult life, think back to your childhood, right? Even if it was just a single moment in your life where you felt whole and complete and calm inside and at peace, right? Like there wasn't an internal war going on in your head and your body, right? Sit in that feeling for a moment and then ask yourself, how can I protect that feeling and make it happen more often than it has been? Because some of us stay in relationships for the wrong reason or marriages for the wrong reason. I am no exception, right? We all know I'm a single mom now, but I wasn't always, in the sense that, my husband was physically there during our marriage. I'm not going to go there 100%, but when you're in a marriage, it's supposed to be a partnership, right? It's vows that you take and promises essentially that you make to one another. And then when you have children and you start a family, having someone physically there and having someone actually there are two separate things, because someone can be present in your life but not be present, right? So physically, they're sitting right there, but emotionally, mentally, energetically, spiritually, all the things, they're already checked out. You're already doing everything yourself. They'll watch you struggle and not even try to help. Hmm. That's not a partnership. That's you having someone physically with you and still doing everything yourself. I don't know about you, but to me, that's not a marriage, right? There's no communication, there's no love shown between the two, there's no partnership in a sense where I'm going to help you carry the load. You don't have to do it on your own, right? If that's not there, then why are you there? If they're present, but they're not really present and in it with you, and you're just in it by yourself, there's no point. Now, for years, right, I had that belief stuck in my head from the Catholic side of things that marriage is sacred. And, having a family and a household where the mom and the dad are there is way better for the children than only having one parent or splitting time between two parents. Like that was literally drilled in my head so much so that I stayed in a dangerous situation. And I justified it by saying I was doing it for my girls. I didn't want them to grow up in a broken home, right? I didn't want them to have to experience the things that I did growing up. But eventually, I realized it wasn't enough. It was doing more damage with them, even though, I was trying to hide what was going on. It it still damaged them. They knew and I didn't even know they knew, right? And then when I found out after I was already out of that situation, it broke me. It broke me wide open because they were like, "Mom, we heard." Now, it was not my decision to tell them what happened. In fact, I was very clear with everyone that knew they don't need to know that. That is their father. They need to have a relationship with him, even though he and I are not together, right? What he did to me has nothing to do with them. At the end of the day, they're kids. They are his kids. They do need their father. And I did my best to ensure that they kept a relationship with him. But that's where it takes two. It takes two people to make a baby. It takes two people to raise it, minimum, right? It takes two people to exist in a relationship. It takes two people to exist in a friendship, in a family type relationship, right? So if one person is treating themselves because they're basically expending energy for both people, eventually you get to a point where you have nothing left. There's nothing left for you, there's nothing left for anyone else. You're depleted. And it takes time to refill yourself and build yourself back up and keep going, right? And this is why hustle culture also played a big part, right? Like I'm depleted, but I got to keep going. I can't stop, right? They need this, they need that, whatever, right? Everybody needs me. But what happens when I need me? What happens when I need everyone that I've been helping? Do you think they're there? In a lot of the relationships in my life, in any aspect, they were not. At the end of the day, it was still me. And it got so bad that it got to a point where I didn't recognize myself. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how I got there, right? And I was like, who am I? I've been everything to everyone else that I forgot to be something to myself. And so I forgot me. I didn't know who I was. And I had to do a lot of work to learn who I was outside of a mom, outside of a wife, girlfriend, fiance, all the things, outside of a sister, a daughter, an auntie. And could I tell you 100% certainty I know exactly who I am now? No, I'm still learning who I am. But I know a large portion of me. I know my boundaries. I know my peace. I know what I need, what I desire. I know all of that, right? And not just intellectually, I know it spiritually, I know it emotionally, I know what it feels like. I know what feels good to me and what doesn't. I know what I enjoy doing and what I don't, right? And there's still so much I'm learning about myself. I still surprise myself sometimes. And that's because for the majority of my life, I knew the survival version of me, right? I knew the one who got through things, even when it meant there was nothing left for her. She would keep going. She would sacrifice for everyone. She would be there for everyone. She would drop whatever it is she was doing and come running if they called. And then I went through some shit. I went through some scary shit. Almost lost my life, and it was just me at the end of the day. I mean, in the initial situation, like when it first happened, there were people there. But have you ever had something happen to you and you go to the hospital and you're rushed into surgery and people are there that day, right? And then in the days that follow, they're not. Same thing with funerals. I hate to say it, right? But the day someone dies, people surround you. The day of the funeral, people surround you. But the days in between, not so much. And the days after the funeral, right? Not so much. How long they stay just depends on what they can do, what they can handle. And think you're gonna have to walk that to me. I'm not reaching for it again. Oh my gosh. Okay. Why you want a popsicle is beyond me, but I love you. Hold on. Here. Take it. Thank you. Okay. So I knew survival me. I had to learn stable me. I had to learn sovereign me. I had to learn the whole me, the healed me, the I'm gonna protect my peace at all costs me, the I'm gonna enforce my boundaries me, because I used to be a people pleaser. So yes, was my automated answer, right? They asked me for anything, even if I didn't have it. Yeah, I got you. No worries. They asked me for something I really don't have. I got you. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it, right? But I need help. Or I ask for something and it's not reciprocated. And I cannot say that word right now. I'm dead. Okay. It doesn't come back to me. We're just we're gonna do that. Um, so it's not mutual, right? It's one-sided. And eventually you learn to protect yourself from encounters and relationships with people that are one-sided. Because for anything to work when it involves two or more people, everyone got to do their part. And so that being said, right? Like I said, I knew survival me, so there was a lot of things that I learned during that time, coping skills and things like that, because for I don't want to say three-fourths because that would imply I had more time as I am now than I did. So I would say 9/10. Oh my gosh, Winter. The bunny just scared me. Okay. Um it jumped on my foot. I was not expecting that. Um I'll say 9/10 of my life, right? From birth through a good portion of my adult life. So I'd say, let's say 35, 36 of my 38 years was survival me. There were periods when I was not solely survival me, right? But they were very sparse and few and far between. And it taught me a lot of things that I still use today, right? Certain coping mechanisms and ways that I get through things. But it also meant that there was a ginormous, and I know that's not a word, ginormous amount of unlearning that I had to do if I wanted to build a relationship back with myself, right? and have it be strong for me. So I could be strong for me instead of being strong for others. So I could be there for me instead of always being there for others, even to my own detriment, right? And there was a lot that happened while I was unlearning a lot of things. And I have a huge heart, and no one was used to me saying no. No one was used to me understanding that if I don't have the capacity to do something, I can't do it, right? And I have to honor that. I have to honor what I need. I have to admit that I am not this unlimited person who has an infinite amount of energy and things like that, because I'm not. I have limits. There is only so much that my big, beautiful heart can take, right? And it takes a lot to get me to a certain point with someone to where I cut them off. But that also meant I dealt with a lot of stuff until I finally decided enough was enough. And I had to unlearn that behavior, and that was not easy, right? Because people will weaponize what you used to do for them against you when you're trying to do something for yourself. They don't have a problem if you're helping them, right? And if you're spending that energy that you have, that precious energy on them. There is something in my eye. I don't know if it's my hair or what, but it's okay. Anyway, um and so what happens is they don't understand when you say no because they're not used to it. You're not even used to it. And that's why you have to set boundaries, and you have to learn to protect yourself and protect your peace. And obviously, it doesn't go perfectly all the time, right? Um there's going to be situations that happen that test everything you're learning about yourself. And if you're not careful, you can slip back into those old patterns. You can start giving your energy to the wrong people and not leaving anything for yourself. You can start absorbing their energy, right? And it negatively impact you. And I don't think that's how we were meant to live. I think we were meant to live in harmony, right? In peace with one another and ourselves by loving one another and ourselves, right? But you can also love somebody from a distance. And love doesn't mean they have to have access, okay? Access is supposed to be earned, not just given freely. And then you gotta file a formal eviction to get the motherfucking energy out of your damn presence. I, look, we don't need to do all that, okay? What we need to do is we need to listen to ourselves. So I did that this morning. I listened to myself, and I pulled the cards out, and I knew what I wanted to talk about. And originally, I was going to do the cards before I even recorded. And then I started thinking about energy. And that's where that whole God and the universe and Mother Nature and human beings and just everything being energy came from. That's where that realization came from, right? Like, shit, we're all energy. We are all energy. And I don't know about you, but I know my energy is precious. I know that if I allow someone into my life, into my heart, right, that is sacred. So if they continuously violate it, they lose access. Why? Because I hold the key. That is within my control. I can't control what they do, how they treat me, how they react to something. I can only control me. I can only control how I react, what I choose to allow, right? Oh, I got a reminder that my daughter's appointment, Cherishes, is in September. It's another ENT follow-up, but I was looking like, why is my calendar going off? Did I forget something today? But nah, we're good. Um, so bottom line, right? I had to do a lot of unlearning And the biggest lesson I learned was protecting me, right? Protecting my peace, protecting my big, beautiful heart, right? Protecting my energy. And if you find yourself in a situation where something familiar happens and it triggers you reflexively, you can reach for something that got you through it before. But I'm going to challenge you to handle that situation with a protection first mindset, meaning, how does this protect me and the person I love, right? Is this person trying to protect me as much as I'm trying to protect them? Do they love me as much as I love them? Are they putting as much into this relationship, friendship, whatever, right, that I am? Or is it one sided? Ask yourself those questions. And before you react, I want you to take a moment and think about, is this worth protecting and preserving? And if it is, then communicate, talk it through. Don't reach for that old thing that got you through before, which, for me, one of those things was just completely shutting down and things like that, but communication is key. And if something hurts you or a situation happens and it doesn't feel good, you don't have to attack the other person, right? You can talk to them. You can be like, hey, that hurt. When you said what you said, that hurt. When you did what you did, that hurt. And here's why. And I need you to understand that that is not okay. You don't get to treat me that way. I don't deserve that behavior from you. And it is the hardest thing in the world to say, okay, when you first start doing it. So be warned, all right? Be warned. But over time, it gets easier. And the biggest thing I want you to take away is that you need to listen to yourself. You need to love yourself. If you don't have a relationship with you, if you don't truly know who the hell you are right now, I'm going to challenge you to figure that out. I'm going to challenge you to take the time with yourself. I don't care if it's 5 minutes every morning. I don't care if it's while you're in the shower, because for the longest, that was the only time I had to myself, right? And I barely had that, if I'm being honest. In the shower, I had time to process things, right? And through my whole healing journey, I had a mantra and I still use it, right? Like I said, it's only been like a year and 6 months. I'm not that far into it. I mean, I am. I'm extremely far, but I'm unlearning 34 years worth of shit. Okay? So it takes time. And not 34, I'd say 36. 36 years worth of shit that I had to unlearn. I had to figure out what I wanted to take with me moving forward and what I wanted to leave behind me. Because I don't want to be that person, right? I don't want to handle things that way. And I don't want to be in that situation again, right? Lessons. Um, I had to unlearn 36 years of shit. And so I realized something overly simple, I swear, right? I had to feel to heal, because I had this habit of stuffing things down, pushing them down so I could keep going and never really processing them fully and dealing with them fully. And yes, I was in therapy for years and I talked about things and I thought I was processing them, but I was processing them inside the container that was already made for me. I wasn't free to feel them fully. And I had to give myself permission to do that, as crazy as that sounds. I had to give myself permission to feel the pain I had been avoiding for the majority of my life. That is no small feat. That is no small feat at all. Um, but when I allowed myself to feel it that fully, whenever it came up, right? I also figured out what it meant, how it affected me. Did I like how I felt in that situation? Right? Was it just familiar? Because a lot of times when we're going through something, we reach for what's familiar, we reach for what comforts us, and sometimes that's not always a good thing. Not not always, right? Sometimes, though, it's not always a good thing. So that's when you have to learn. There's a girl. Are you done? Because I'm gonna need you to get up. I do not want you to fall. Because we is not going back to the ER. You up? Okay, cool. Okay, so unlearning stuff takes forever. Not literally, right? I've unlearned a lot. I've unlearned all of the major things I needed to unlearn within that first year and started, building better things in its place. Um, and then we get into the past 6 months, and there's a lot of periods where I'm good, right? I got this. Strong. Don't gotta worry about it. I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I will not accept and what I will accept and all the things, right? I know my limits. I know my boundaries. I know what I'm willing to accept and what I refuse to accept, okay? And because I know these things and I feel them, right? I can also have an awareness about me that when I find myself slipping into an old pattern, I can pretty much tell. Girl, sorry. Here. I'm not opening no more chips for you. Eat those. Thank you. Okay. So I can tell when I'm slipping into an old pattern and I have to catch myself and I'm like, "No. You know where this leads. We're going to choose differently." Right? Same thing. Different day. So even during, a healing journey, you're going to have moments where you'll be tempted to go back to how it was because it's easier, right? It was familiar. It's comforting. And you know it. Which brings me to another saying. And this popped in my head, I promise you. A lot of people say like the devil you know, right? It's better to deal with the devil you know than the one you don't. Okay? And I'm not saying that in a religious aspect at all. I'm just saying it as an analogy for reaching for something that's wrong for you because it's familiar, because it's comforting, but it's wrong for you and you know it's wrong for you. So instead of continuing to reach for that, reach for you. Reach for what's right for you. Communicate that and see what happens. But always trust yourself and protect yourself and your peace and love yourself. Because if you don't, how can you trust and love and protect anyone else? The two cannot coexist. You can't love, protect, and trust someone else and you don't do it with yourself. You can't honor someone else if you don't honor yourself. To love, honor, and obey, right? You can't obey someone else if you don't obey yourself. And that's the whole when you're on an airplane and I tell you if the oxygen masks come down to put it on yourself first before you try to help the person next to you. And I used to hate that because one of my therapists told me that, and I hated it because I never understood it. Because if I'm on an airplane and my child is next to me and those oxygen masks come down, I'm going to put it on them before I put it on me. That was my mindset, right? And then she told me something and she said, "Okay, fine. Let's play that scenario out." So we did, right? I put the oxygen mask on my child that was with me, and then I went to go put it on myself, except I was out of oxygen, right? It was too late. So now my child is safe and things, but I'm no longer here. I protected them. I did my job, but I didn't protect me. I couldn't put it on me and her at the same time, apparently, which, my logical brain is like, wait, why can't I? And then I still don't know the answer to that one because in my mind, if there's a way for me to do it for me and my child at the same time, I'm do it, right? But then apparently it wouldn't be on correctly. But if I put it on myself, then I have the oxygen I need to put it on my child. See, I'm protecting me and my child. So now we both have the oxygen masks because my child couldn't put it on themselves, right? They were relying on me to do it. So I had to put mine on so I could breathe long enough to put theirs on so they would be okay. Because when you're in that situation, there's no one else around you that can help. It's just you and that other person, right? And if the other person can't do it for themselves and you do it for them, what happens when your oxygen's gone and then you're gone? And now they're on their own and they couldn't even do that for themselves. They needed you. And I was over there like, damn, 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 damn. That's all I could say because, like, what do I say to that? But it started to make sense, right? Like, I put it on me quickly because it's right there in my face. Boom, throw it on, then boom, go to my child and put theirs on. And now we're both good. So I protected me and I protected my child. And same thing in a relationship or anything else, right? Make sure your oxygen mask is on before you try to help them put theirs on. You see what I'm saying? Hopefully, right? But I'm going to challenge you this week to, well, these next 2 weeks, right? Because we're meeting again in 2 weeks. Start practicing that. Start applying protection first to your life, to your relationship with yourself. Because if I didn't love me and I didn't trust me and I didn't follow what I felt this episode had to be about, I wouldn't have made it, right? And it may not be for everyone, but I know it's going to be for a lot of someone's. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to watch this episode and they're going to be like, damn, I didn't know I needed to hear that. Sunday reminded me why I needed to hear certain things at certain times. And because I needed to hear them, I'm like, shit, this episode needs to be about listening to ourselves, protecting ourselves, loving ourselves, trusting ourselves, choosing how we interact with the energy around us, what we believe in, what our values are, what aligns with us. When you know that, things get easier. It gets easier to have relationships. It gets easier to have friendships. It gets easier to get through the hard times. But you got to do the work. You got to protect you first. You got to love you first. You have to honor you first. Right? So, why this episode is this episode, I don't know. But I'm going to trust that whoever needed to hear this heard what I said and it made sense to them. And to you, right? The one that's listening to this. Because if you made it this far into this episode, something about it told you to stay. Listen, let's see where she takes this, right? And life will always hand you reminders of lessons that you learned. But think of them as opportunities to choose differently, to move forward differently. Are you okay? Sorry, I know. Choose you. Choose what's best for you. Choose what's best for your family, your children, if you're a parent, right? Your relationship. Whether that's with a significant other, whether that's with a family member, whether that's with an adult child, a cousin, an auntie, an uncle. I don't care. I don't care. Make sure that you always protect your peace and don't let anyone take it from you because that is in your control. Your life and how it's lived is within your control. You cannot control what other people do, but you can control what you do in response to it. Do you hear me? I hope you do. And when that little voice speaks up, you listen, even if it's a whisper, because that's you talking to you. Okay? So start listening. Start listening to yourself. Start trusting yourself. Because when you ignore those feelings that you have and those thoughts that something's not right, when you ignore those, you break trust with yourself. Take it from me, I know. You stop trusting yourself eventually. And then you have to build it back. And trust is a long road when you need to build it back, especially when it comes to building it with yourself. But do the work because it's absolutely worth it. It is absolutely worth it. So, that being said, I will see you guys in a couple weeks, and we're going to talk about whatever came up during the next 2-week period of my life, which is, the first 2 weeks of my personal new year. So I'm excited for what's to come. And I have committed to reapplying protection first in my life. And I want you all to commit to, okay? So thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I hope there was something in what I said today that helped you. Even if it was just you got to feel to heal, okay? Even if that's all you take from this episode, I'm calling it a win. All right? So until next time, guys, thank you. Bye.